colors green, blue, and red, spinning round inside my head. Things I just can't explain. Phosphorescent liquid rain, psychedelic mushroom cloud explosion. I wanna know where your head is. Show me yours and I'll show you mine. Come on a trip with me, babe. I'll take you down to the other side. I'll take you down to the other side. I'll take you down to the other side of your mind.
Alright, hello there, thrill seekers and seekers of fun and excitement. That song was called Psychedelic Mushroom Cloud Explosion, and my hair is having an explosion today. And it was another song that I wrote, and it's from the second Dementia 13 album, Mirror Mind. And the idea of that song was, I was buying a lot of these weird old exploitation albums from the psychedelic era, and I wanted to write one of those cheesy, fake psychedelic songs, sort of like the most famous one being Just Dropped In to See What Condition My Condition Was In, the Kenny Rogers song. And Kenny Rogers never dropped acid, but he wrote a song as if he'd dropped acid, what he imagined it was like, you know, and it's a great song. So I wanted to write a song like that sounded like a cheesy, fake psychedelic song. The problem was, when the critics started to criticize that album, nobody seemed to get that, and they all picked out that song as like, oh, that's so dumb. The point of the song was to be as dumb as possible. Maybe I should have been more explicit about that. It's a really dumb song, but I kind of like it anyway. So, I wanted to talk about this, Hardcore Zen. And the reason I want to talk about it is this comes up from time to time. It came up again recently, it came up a few years ago, where people criticize me because they think I'm making some kind of a claim to be very hardcore about my Zen, you know, and there was even a web page a few years ago, might have been Sweeping Zen or one of those, where somebody got really upset because, oh, Hardcore Zen, Brad Warner is obviously anti-woman and a misogynist because Hardcore Zen is so male and it only attracts men and all this kind of, and I didn't really follow where that was going, but there's all sorts of people who get confused by this, and I thought I would explain the origin of the title Hardcore Zen. I don't know if this is interesting to people, but, you know, here we go. So, here's the deal. When I first wrote the book that became Hardcore Zen, it was in 2000, probably starting around 2001 or 2000, and it finally got published in 2003. So the title I settled on it very early on was Sit Down and Shut Up. I wanted to call the book Sit Down and Shut Up because I thought that was the perfect encapsulation of what Zen was all about and what I'd learned about. So I sent it to the publishers with that title already on it, Sit Down and Shut Up. And somewhere in the process of doing the editing for the book, the publishers came back to me and said, well, we have to change the title because nobody will ever buy a book called Sit Down and Shut Up. It's too negative. And I thought, well, I don't know. I think people might buy it, but you guys are the marketing geniuses, so okay, what do you want to call it? I don't remember if they even asked me to come up with a title. They suggested to me the title Hardcore Zen. They said, what if we call it Hardcore Zen? Because it was a book about how I discovered Zen Buddhism while being the bass player for a hardcore punk band. That was the reason it was called Hardcore Zen, and nothing else. It wasn't trying to say that my Zen is especially more hardcore than any other Zen, or that I am so hardcore about Zen, but it was about the fact that I played in a hardcore punk band and then I got into Zen Buddhism. So Hardcore Zen. But I thought it was a catchy title and I liked it. And so I went with it. And so that's what the book became. And now you can get it in a different cover. So now you can only get it in the red cover, but it used to come in this black cover with a toilet on it, which I never liked all that much. But a lot of people liked it, so maybe I was wrong. And after that, I didn't do a whole lot. If you look at the gap between my first book and my second book, the first one came out in 2003, the second one didn't come out till 2007. I was kind of figuring I was just going to write one book and be done with it. But, I don't know, I got the bug again and I started writing another book, and when I wrote the other book, then I used the title Sit Down and Shut Up, and it sold just fine. In fact, this is the second best-selling book of all my books, so the title Sit Down and Shut Up didn't seem to turn people off from the book. It came out in France just, I think, last year, or maybe the year before last, with a title that even with my mediocre French, I can recognize as being an exact translation. Assieds-toi et tais-toi. Assieds-toi, so sit down and shut up. It just means exactly the same thing. Several people came to me with the idea of trying to turn Hardcore Zen into a movie, and I was sort of excited about that because at the time I worked in a film company. I thought, okay, that would be cool, turn Hardcore Zen into a movie. But nobody could ever turn Hardcore Zen into a movie. However, my friend Piruz Kalea, who wasn't really my friend at the time, but he became my friend later, he looks, there's this picture on the back cover, that guy there. He did a documentary about me, and then he called the documentary Brad Warner's Hardcore Zen, so we used that title again. And then I did this book, which was with a small publisher in Ohio, and it's a compilation of early blogs that I did back before I ever published a book, and I called it Hardcore Zen Strikes Again, which was probably a mistake because now people get this book and this book confused all the time, and they think that this book is a reissue of this book, but it isn't. It's a totally different book, and so I'm sorry for confusing people with using Hardcore Zen. But when I started doing internet stuff and you know, doing like this video channel is youtube.com/hardcorezen. I did a blog for years. I still do it. I don't put up as much on it as I used to, but the blog is called Hardcore Zen. And so I started using Hardcore Zen as a kind of, because I know that people know the name Hardcore Zen a lot better than they know Brad Warner. But again, I'm not trying to claim that my Zen is hardcore, or that I'm so hardcore about Zen, or that I'm a hardcore person who does Zen in a hardcore way or anything like that. I just called it that. And by the way, here's something else about the word hardcore. Used to be hardcore meant a certain kind of very, very explicit dirty magazine or dirty movie was hardcore. And when I first heard the term hardcore punk, and I thought I was pretty, you know, hip and whatever, when I first heard the term hardcore punk, I was like, oh my, hardcore punk, you know. So it used to be a lot stronger of a word back, you know, in the 80s and 90s than it is now. But so, you know, there you go, just a history lesson for you kids out there, I suppose. But so people take offense at that too, so I just thought I'd point that out. So anyway, it became a marketing thing, and I'm not against marketing. I feel like I have two sort of lives going on professionally. I am a professional writer of books and a professional YouTuber. And as a professional writer of books and professional YouTuber, I have no problem with marketing everything as much as possible. I just did an interview for a radio show just before I did this this video today. I do those things all the time. I'll advertise, I'll do whatever it takes to try to make the books sell and to try to get the internet, the web page noticed, because that's my profession as a writer. On the other hand, when it comes to Zen, you can't sell it. You can't sell Zen. So I don't mind being a professional and selling my writing and selling my talent and my ability as a writer for whatever it's worth. But when it comes to Zen, I'm not going to try to sell Zen, and it's obviously a gray area because, you know, I do make money when I run a retreat or something like that. I get paid for those things, but I try to keep my prices low and try to keep it reasonable so anybody who wants to can join, and I'll put up a list of the places I'm going to be in September. I'm going to Europe in September for a tour, so remind me to do that. I'm going to Finland, England, Hebden Bridge, England, France, Paris and Lyon, and what was the last place? England, France. Did I say Finland? Finland, England, France. Germany! Sorry, that's the most obvious one. That's the one I'm going to spend the most time in. So I'm going to do several things, one in Bonn and one at Benedictushof, where I go every year. Anyway, I'll put a list up later on when I have all the dates fixed. But I go out and I do those things and I get paid for them. Don't get paid a lot, but I get paid for them. And I don't mind that, but I don't want to try to sell Zen, because you can't sell Zen. I don't try to convert people to Zen. I don't try to, you know, get more Zennies in the world, whatever. I just want to make it available to people, and that's how I do it. So if you don't like that, fine. You know, it's what I do. So that's fine. You must like it to a certain extent if you're here watching this. But that's it. That's all there is to Hardcore Zen. I did notice a few years ago somebody, I've forgotten the name of him, put out a book that was like a very hardcore explanation of Buddhism. And I thought, oh, good, just steal my title. And then just the other day I was in a Barnes & Noble and I saw a book called If God is Love, Don't Be a Jerk. So the Christians are even stealing my titles. And somebody else stole the title. I had a book called There Is No God and He Is Always With You. And I saw another book where they stole that title. They just changed a couple of words, but they took the title. So I must be good at coming up with titles because people keep stealing them. And I've come up with the titles for all my other books. Hardcore Zen is the only book where I let somebody else come up with the title. Of every other title I've come up with, including The Other Side of Nothing, which is my latest book, which you can go and get at bookstores everywhere. So that's the deal with that. I just thought I'd do a short video explaining that because people seem to ask it all the time. So there you go. That's the explanation. If you want to contribute to me explaining things more, you can go to the URL you're seeing below, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. Notice I'm using Hardcore Zen there too, so it's hardcorezen.info/donate. There you will find links to my PayPal and Patreon accounts. Those are my main ways of making a living, is your donations, so I really appreciate your support, but as always, you don't gotta donate if you don't want to donate. So we will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Bye. This is Ziggy making a heart shape with his front paws. See that? So cute. Hi, Ziggy.